Hey everybody, what's going on? Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well still on this Friday, and I want to go ahead and take a video to talk about this. I want to go ahead and take one video to discuss this because this definitely got a lot of people's attention in the NFL world, particularly as it pertains to the Seattle Seahawks. And I think it's worth taking at least one video to talk about because, let's face it, the month of July is all about predicting stuff for the upcoming season, right? Like, that is a huge chunk of what we do here. And when somebody offers up a pretty bold and pretty unconventional take on what your team is going to do this upcoming season, it's worth talking about. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks, so a lot of you guys probably are familiar with Bucky Brooks and the work that he does for the NFL Network. And I think he's been there for about 6 years now, something like that. And he was also actually a former Seattle Seahawks scout back in 1999. After his NFL playing career ended, he was actually a scout for the Seahawks for a little bit. So maybe you know him from that. But either way, he's now an NFL Network analyst. And the official NFL YouTube channel released a season preview for the Seattle Seahawks several days ago. So a lot of you guys have probably already seen this part. But if you take a look at the various 2026 predictions, you'll see a lot of stuff that you kind of expect, maybe. You've got 10 wins for the Seahawks. You've got 11. You've got 12. You've got Nick, who's really going wild here with the 15. He's got 15-2, so that is certainly on the optimistic side. I think we'd all be pretty over the moon if the team actually managed to pull that off. But what really stands out here, and by the way, I'm not saying that 10 wins is something that I'm overly excited about anyway from Lance Zierlein here, but Bucky Brooks made some waves with a prediction of 7-10 for the 2026 Seahawks. Now, all of these other records are probably going to at least get the team into the playoffs, right? Even 10-7 usually is good enough. Not always, but usually. And I think we all understand that sometimes in the NFL, the best you can do is to just get into the playoffs and hope things break your way when you get in there. So I think we'd all be okay with these outcomes as long as they result in a playoff berth. But you know what doesn't result in a playoff berth is 7-10. So Bucky Brooks is predicting, and he's not typically a Seahawks hater or anything like that. He thinks they're going to take a giant step back and have maybe their worst season in almost over a decade and a half. So the interesting thing here is the record prediction is one thing, right? The record prediction is one thing, but earlier today, or actually I guess it was yesterday now, Bucky Brooks actually decided to step up to the plate and defend his take. He actually decided to go on the Brock and Salk show on Seattle Sports and defend why he thinks the 2026 Seahawks are going to be a bad team. And I think that's admirable, right? If you're going to have a take like this, because I do view this as being kind of ludicrous, just to go ahead and inject my own position into it here. I do view this as being kind of insane. He's willing to put himself out there and at least say why he thinks it's going to happen. Because to me, the only way this happens is if the team suffers a ton of injuries, which is not really something that should be predicted because it's by its nature relatively unpredictable. If you like sports, then the best way to make them even better and more exciting is using the Prize Picks app, where it always feels good to be right. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy simple. Just pick more or less on your favorite players and build lineups with a few taps. Whatever sport you're into, and obviously we are now firmly into the NFL offseason, so we're all about baseball. We got some basketball, we got some hockey, whatever it is you like. Prize Picks gives you a fun way to stay locked in while you're watching. Definitely make sure to use the promo code HMA. Prize Picks is hooking up users with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. If you use that promo code, that is HMA. I've had a great time on Prize Picks so far, so definitely get on over to it, check it out, and make sure to get your lineups. And don't forget about Team Picks, where you can pick winners, spreads, and totals on any major game. So Download the app now, use HMA, and get on over to Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And remember, always gamble responsibly. All right, so here's what Bucky Brooks had to say about why he thinks the Seahawks are going to have a bad 2026. And there are not going to be very many people out there who think the Seahawks are going to be bad this year. So when somebody says he thinks they will be, I think they're worth listening to. I think that we should at the very least see what they have to say, even if we end up disagreeing. So if you take a look at this article from Field Goals that kind of outlines his points, the division is hard, which that's definitely true. Okay, sure. This is going to be one of the best divisions in football. So there's some room for one of the teams that you would assume to be good in the division to not have a good season because things don't quite break their way in those divisional games. Now, you do have one team in the division that should be pretty easy to farm. So even within the division, you're only talking about 4 games, right? You get 4 games against really tough divisional opponents. This is a thing I think everyone has to understand. And the 12s have been through this before. It is really hard after you win a title to sustain yourself the next year. Now, this is where I feel like Bucky Brooks does not understand what he's talking about here. This is where I kind of feel like I don't know where this comes from. It feels like he just has some bad information or is misinformed somehow. The Seahawks have won 1 title in their franchise history, if you're talking about a Super Bowl title. And the year after they won that title, they went back to the Super Bowl the next year. So I understand the concept of a Super Bowl winner hangover. I understand the idea of a team winning it all and then not coming back with the same energy the next year. But we have not personally been through this. The Seahawks won Super Bowl 48 and then played in Super Bowl 49. So I don't know where that comes from. And even if you want to talk about winning the conference championship, where you go back to 2005, where the Seahawks won the NFC, the next year they did win the division and win a playoff game. I know it wasn't a great year, but it wasn't some monster fall off. In 2015, the year after the team won the NFC and lost the Super Bowl to the Patriots, the next year they made the playoffs and won a playoff game. So I don't understand where he's saying that the 12s have been through this before. We really haven't. There's normally that next year you come back, there's a few different things. There's some natural complacency that seeps in. The team is never the same, and the energy that you face from everybody is drastically different. With a team that's still on the young side, the maturity that is required to handle that is going to be a lot early. And that may be true in general. Again, I think that it's categorically false that the Seahawks have experienced this personally. But I also think that if you take a step back and look at the way the Seahawks are dealing with being defending champions right now, they're doing it quite well. And I don't get the sense that this Seahawks team is going to have any kind of an issue defending their title from an issue of from an angle of complacency. I don't see that. It is a young team, but there are plenty of veteran leaders on the team. Guys that in some cases won Super Bowls before they got here. Not just last year, guys like Cooper Kupp, guys like Ernest Jones. And then you have guys like D-Law who are nearing the end of their career. Guys like Uchenna Nwosu who are veterans as well. So I look at this and I see a generic platitude. I don't know if I see it applying to this team particularly well. Not just because it doesn't apply to this team historically, but also because it doesn't really apply to this roster. So I feel like this comes from a place of somebody not really knowing what is going on here. And then with the changes that you have, Clint Kubiak, who I think is one of the top 5 play callers in football, he disappears. You lose the Super Bowl MVP in Kenneth Walker. You have some changes that, to me, I just wonder, can you catch lightning in a bottle all over again in a division that is increasingly tougher with the Niners and Rams loading up? Now, the Clint Kubiak thing, I'm pretty on board with. I think Clint Kubiak could easily be missed. We could definitely find ourselves in a situation where we're sitting there at the end of the year thinking, man, if we had Clint Kubiak, everything would have been different. It really is too bad we lost him. Without him, we just were not the same team. Losing the Ken Walker thing, I wouldn't be that worried about that if not for the fact that we have done a relatively patchwork job replacing him, right? I don't think Ken Walker's a top 5 running back. He's probably barely a top 10 running back. But the issue is, you look at how the team has replaced him so far, it's probably not going to be the same. And that is a position where the Seahawks are right now one of the worst teams in the league. So I can get that. Even if I don't love Kenneth Walker, he's still good in a way that the guys that we have right now are not. What I don't agree with here, the thing that really stands out to me in this statement, is lightning in a bottle. Seahawks did not catch lightning in a bottle last year. They went 14-3, got the number 1 seed in the conference, and then mostly controlled the postseason. They won the first game in a blowout. The next game was close, but they led virtually the entire game. They were leading for over 58 minutes of that game in total. And then the Super Bowl may have not been a blowout, but it was a decisive win. And you take a look at the games they lost. All 3 of those games came down to the final minute, final couple seconds, really. And they won a lot of blowouts last year too. So I think calling it lightning in a bottle, it kind of goes back to that thing we've been dealing with this whole offseason, where people are trying to say the Super Bowl was a fluke because of what happened in week 16 against the Rams, or what have you, with the 2-point conversion and then the overtime win, and then to some extent, I guess, the Colts game. Although the Colts game ended up not really mattering that much. I don't know. It's this sense that people are kind of, they don't understand why the Seahawks won it all last year. So rather than try to understand it, they're just going to assume that it shouldn't have happened. The Seahawks don't feel like a 7-10 team, he admitted, but still stuck to his reasoning and cited the historic lack of quarterbacks who even win back-to-back Super Bowls, with the ones who accomplish that all Hall of Fame level. Again, it just kind of feels like you're missing the point of this team. They can have a quarterback that isn't stellar and still win. They can have a quarterback that isn't as good as Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes or Joe Burrow and still win a Super Bowl. I don't think that changes just because historically quarterbacks struggle to do that. So, yeah, that is how he defends himself. I mean, he says some things that are true, but I have to go back to it, man. It feels like guys just haven't quite figured this out yet. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think Bucky Brooks has anything coherent? Do you think he has anything smart to say in his prediction of the Seahawks going 7-10? What do you think about Nick Shook going 15-2, by the way? That's a little bit bold as well. That would be pretty easily the best regular season this team has ever had. So, yeah, go ahead and let me know what you guys think down below. And maybe the rest of these predictions as well. 10 or more wins, 10, 11, 12 wins. All pretty positive, but Bucky Brooks, he's being bold here. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being bold. And being bold is how you get attention. Being bold is how you get people to note what you say, and it gets me to make a video like this. If Bucky Brooks had picked the Seahawks to win 11 or 12 games next year, I would not be making this video right now. But what do you guys think? All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks.